how can we actually stand out on these busy platforms? Like, what's a way that we can actually stand out so that we can get hired?
It's very basic sales marketing tactics at the end of the day when you think about it, and it's establishing trust with the client as quickly as possible. It's being very forward facing about who you are and what you can offer them, like, immediately.
What do you think are some key things that we can focus on to really target that Gen Z demographic or psychographic?
All of the sales tactics stuff that might work on you or might work on whoever, like, they don't like any of that. The second you come out and try and sell anything to them, it's like immediate, like, stop. You have to show your kindness, your generosity, and your authenticity before they're going to listen to you for any single second.
Today we're talking with the freelance fairy herself. You may have seen her featured in Yahoo, CNBC, Entrepreneur Magazine, six-figure business, all off the back of Fiverr. Super excited to chat with the one and only Alex Fasulo. Welcome.
Thanks, Mark. Oh my God, you said my last name perfectly.
Many years of practice. I'm generally pretty good with phonetics, but I'm just really excited to chat with you because I'm watching what you're doing online. It's really, really impressive. You have hundreds of thousands of followers across multiple channels, just delivering a lot of information to people. I want to kind of start from the beginning without getting too in depth. But one of the interesting things about you, Alex, is you left your corporate job to freelance on Fiverr. And I got to ask, how many people told you you were crazy for doing this?
Pretty much every single person. Or some people would just look at me because they didn't even know what freelancing meant. And I think in their head, they were like, this poor girl.
So I'm just kind of curious. That's a really difficult thing, right? It can be a very lonely place starting something that nobody understands. Was there anything in particular, like, why did you feel like this was the right direction for you to go at that time?
I really had no strategy behind it at all. That freelancing was one of many things that I tried because I was just desperate to not have to go back to an office. So I was doing a bunch of things, from teaching social media on, weeknights, to social media management for people for different brands, to writing, to freelancing, and freelancing on Fiverr just happened to be what took off. There was really no strategy behind it.
I kind of empathize with that. That's very similar to my journey, in that we just keep trying different things until we find things that work, and then we lean into them. And speaking of lean in, I want to talk a little bit about Fiverr. So just for a little bit of context for anyone who's not familiar, Fiverr is an online marketplace where you can find freelancers to do graphic design, copywriting, video editing, all sorts of different, typically digital functions. Okay. And your main niche was copywriting, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Perfect. So you got into it in 2016. In 2017, you had a huge year, 63K. That's pretty great for a freelancer.
Yeah.
In 2018, you almost quadrupled that to $273,000. That's a huge jump in your income. What do you attribute that to? How did you get from 63 to 273 in 1 year?
Fiverr Pro launched, which is the top 1% of the platform. It was a new program that Fiverr started to push out because they were trying to compete with Upwork in a way, because everyone was like, oh, Fiverr's the $5, bargain deal, basement, whatever, crappy freelancing site. So they launched Fiverr Pro in an effort to appear more like top quality and whatnot. So I was one of the few people that they picked to be part of it. And they rolled it out in 2017, but it wasn't until 2018 when it came out of beta and actually took off. And then that was what quadrupled my income. Like, single-handedly, it was Fiverr Pro.
Sure. And honestly, I think that strategy, if you would, of getting a collaboration with a big company or app is one of the best ways to get that visibility, I find. And it's not always easy, but if you can find apps that are on the come up or launching a new feature, that's a great place to go. And speaking of which, I don't want to get too far off topic. Facebook is just launching their own podcast platform. Are you excited? Is that something that you're going to be leaning into with your show?
I honestly have not. I'm so new to podcasting still that I take any advice people have to give me, but it's definitely a part of my brand to just take advantage of any opportunity that's within my grasp. So I'm sure, I will be checking that out. I'm also monitoring LinkedIn. That's going to launch its own freelancing platform this fall. So all of these social media sites are totally going to change, everything, of course, but freelancing too. And I'm getting, I'm like gearing up to almost be a freelancing news reporter in a way on my channels because nobody else is really covering this stuff. So, like, I did a YouTube video on LinkedIn launching its new platform last week, and it's by far my most viral YouTube because no one else is like,
Yeah.
covering it.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm all in on these platforms. I actually didn't know that LinkedIn was launching this freelancing platform. So
Okay.
that's really
Yeah.
interesting. You heard it here
Yeah.
first, After Hours Entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I actually want to talk about this a little bit because, when I go on Fiverr, there's lots of people there, right? It's going to be the same thing with LinkedIn. And when we're talking about freelancing, and that can be a lot of different things depending on what your individual skill set and focus is on. How can we actually stand out on these busy platforms? Like, what's a way that we can actually stand out so that we can get hired?
Yeah, that's everyone's always, number one question, and it's very basic sales marketing tactics at the end of the day when you think about it, and it's establishing trust with the client as quickly as possible. And what are the two best ways to do that? By being yourself, showing imagery of yourself and having a portfolio ready that showcases the work that you can do for them. These people don't care about where you went to college, they don't care about people are like, "Oh, I don't want to be on Fiverr. I don't want to have my picture on it." And I'm just like, that's they're not hiring you to model for them. They just want to know that you are who you say you are, you're not lying about it, you're not impersonating somebody, and that your work is top quality and you are someone who can, handle this job and get it done for them. They don't care if you went to college, even where you went to college, none of that. So, it's being very forward facing about who you are and what you can offer them like immediately.
It is interesting how the workplace is really evolving into a results oriented gatekeeper rather than the where do you went to college gatekeeper. So
Yeah.
I'm with you there 100%. Like, yeah, I could go off on college and college
I
loans
know,
and
me
interest
too.
rates.
I'm holding back. I'm holding back.
It's really horrible, but I think it's really exciting the way that education is evolving. Just by watching your YouTube videos, TikTok videos, Instagram, you can actually get valuable tools there. So I want to talk a little bit about that because the hot topic, I think, in Q3, Q4 here of 2021 is vertical short form video, right? We've got this like battle of the giants, TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels, all of which to me are one of the best ways to get found, get noticed, to
Mhm.
get organic reach. And you've done a wonderful job of repurposing that. 500,000 followers on TikTok, I think 150,000 followers on Instagram, just
Crazy, yeah.
blowing it up, right? What is your strategy when you go into actually recording a vertical short form video? What do you do before you even record?
I know people ask me that. I don't really have a, set in stone process. It's kind of whatever that day I'm feeling. So, if there's a news article out today that, another 5 million Americans quit their jobs, I'll see that and be like, I'm going to post about that. And all my content's going to be related to that today. Or if there's nothing in the news, I mean, people have no problem hearing the same thing like over and over and over again. So, like, I can't tell you how many times I've done Fiverr tutorial videos and it still hits the same every single week if I do a Fiverr 101. And again, and again, and again, like people can't get enough of it almost, I think, because they're so ready to make Fiverr work for them that any little piece of anything I can give them, they'll just take it. And I think my long form video has done so well, not because of the long form video. There's people who edit it much better than me, but because of the actual substance of it and the fact that all of my stuff is very educational, free value, free motivation, all these things that can actually change other people's lives. I think that's why they keep coming back for it.
For
As
the for
opposed to
the
people for the content itself, because I'll see people who are still stuck in the social media ways of 4 years ago where it's all me, me, me. Like when you get on there and you're like, I did my hair today and this is the dye that I used. And some people are still into that, but we've shifted more into a time where if you're not giving something to the viewer, they move on. So getting on there and being like, check out my podcast, check out whatever. No, the video should be, did you know that you could quit your job and make money? Blah, blah, blah at the end. I
Yeah.
have a podcast for that. Like that's how that's how you have to market today. And I think that's why my long form video has done so well, because no, any video I do in my head, I'm like, what value is this giving to the viewer? Because otherwise they're going to scroll right past it.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I've been, I think, very conscious of. Anytime I'm creating content, I always start with the word you rather than the word
Yeah.
I. And I think
Yeah.
that's been a major transformation in, I just got done reading Donald Miller's Story Brand book, which is a great book. And he really frames it in this way that you're not the hero of the story, the viewer is the hero of the story, right? So they're
Yeah.
the hero, you're the mentor that comes along with the right solution to the problem that they have. And I
Exactly.
find that framing it that way is just, for a little bit of context, in the last 3 months, Marks About Me has made more money in the last 3 years. And I think that it's those subtle shifts in messaging that make the real difference. You know, you
For sure.
mentioned,
For sure.
yeah, you mentioned, Alex, that your long form video has been doing really well, right? So you've got your YouTube channel with long form videos, you've got your podcast with the long form content. Do you go into that with strategy, or is it more like this is the trending event that's happening? Talk to me a little bit about what you do before you hit record.
Yeah, I fail a little more at long form because I am not a strategizer really. I'm a throw it out there and see what sticks. So I think when it comes to the podcast and the YouTube, this was my first YouTube video that actually took off, and I think I have like 25 of them now. So my problem is that I get in trouble with the long form because I don't plan enough and I don't look up the keywords and the trending topics and all the things they say you're supposed to do on a YouTube. But I see that, reporting the news, freelancing news on YouTube clearly is doing well, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
I pay attention to it in that way. But yeah, I mean, like for my podcasts and my YouTubes, I'll write out rough scripts that I don't read verbatim, but I'll have them like right there. And for my podcast topics, I typically ask my own people what they want to hear on my Instagram. So I'll post on my Instagram stories, hey guys, what podcast topics are you interested in hearing? And people will give me like 200 ideas. And I think, what better way but to ask the actual people who follow me what they want me to talk about? And then that way you don't have to like, come up with it.
Well, and I think that's one of the best ways to create content is you ask either your audience or you look at other similar audiences, like in Facebook groups, or what are the comments that are coming through on similar niches on YouTube.
Sure.
But I am curious about getting the engagement, because it can be really difficult to get engagement through things like Instagram stories. Is there anything that you're doing now that works? Like, are you using certain stickers, hashtags? Are you tagging other big accounts? What are you doing that you think is working?
Instagram stories, mine can fluctuate like so much. That's what's funny about Instagram stories. Like, it can go from 2,800 people viewed it one day to 10,000 the next day, and you
Yeah.
just like don't even know. I haven't really cracked that one. I've seen people who swear by all the Pinterest hashtags they say to hide in your stories. Is a great way to get traction and go viral on TikTok. I'm bad about it. This is why I'm hiring people to help me now because I can only do so much.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, with my Instagram stories, I always try and have like at least one engaging one up that is like a poll or submit a question where people engage with it. And then I also try, and offer value up again to people in my Instagram stories and say, hey, 3 tips today, guys, for getting more clients.
Well, I definitely like the poll idea. I've had a lot of traction with polls in it, and I think that when you're creating polls, you want to keep them short and concise. At least that's been my
Yeah,
experience. If someone has to read a paragraph to even understand what the question for the poll is, nobody has time for that. You know,
right.
I'm curious for you, Alex. You've been around for a while. You've been seeing a lot of these trends evolve. Do you think that we're moving? I think that a lot of millennials, Gen Zs, we get kind of like a bad name because people say we have ADHD. We can't concentrate on anything for a long period of time. Do you think that
Yeah.
these short form these short form like quick stuff is going to continue to evolve? Or do you think that we're going to be moving into a more like long form, long educational type content type of world? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, TikTok recently pushed out allowing videos to go up to 3 minutes from one
Yeah.
minute, which I think is an indicator of where it is headed. I think the 8 second, the 10 second videos on TikTok, it can't really get shorter than that. So I think if anything, there's been a little pushback to make it a little bit longer. which
Yeah.
is nice to see, yeah, because I don't think anybody wants to see the world head into a 2 second video type of place. So I think there's going to be a reaction to it and to making it longer. Instagram Reels was only 30 seconds for a while. They let you do 60 seconds now. So I think it'll be a happy medium with it. But like with anything, this vertical video fad will last a couple years, but then there will be something behind that. And it'll be interesting to see what it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one thing that I really have my eye on is social audio platforms like Clubhouse, Facebook, Fireside, Twitter Spaces. To me, that's been a really exciting thing for me as a podcaster, as more of a long form content creator. You also mentioned, Alex, that you're getting into podcasting. You already have a podcast that's live. Tell me, A, what's the name of the podcast? And B, why would I want to listen to it?
The name of it is The Freelance Fairy Tales, for many reasons. The first season's just me and like 18-minute episodes, basically going over every single thing a person would need to know to get started freelancing and be making money at it by the end of the week. It's a no fluff, no anything. I don't even talk about, I mean, I talk about myself a teeny bit, but it's like these are just jam packed. Like, if you want to make money on Fiverr by the end of the week, listen to this podcast and it will happen for you.
Love it, love it, love it. The Freelance Fairy Tales. And look, so you can find everything that Alexandra is doing at that alexfasulo.com, link below. Check it out. She's very, very, I think, just putting it all out there, which to me is that Gary V type of style. Give away your best stuff for free, and the people will just get hungry and come back for more. I don't really want to. I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, Alex, because I just have a lot of different questions. But I want to get back to the
That's
vertical
okay.
video, because the vertical video is something that I've been really trying to figure out. Right, YouTube Shorts have been working well for me right now, but TikTok just hasn't taken off. And I do see that you are repurposing and using some of the same videos on different platforms, but not all of them. Is that intentional? Tell me a little bit about where you're putting your videos and what that timeline looks like.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the audiences on a TikTok and an Instagram are completely different, as well as with the YouTube. So like on a YouTube, chances are it's a male between the ages of like 26 and 46. If you're on Instagram, it's probably a woman between the ages of 26 and 46. And if you're on TikTok, it could be anyone between the ages of 14 and 24 that's watching it. So my TikTok stuff will be more clickbaity than if I repurpose a clickbaity TikTok video onto Instagram, it goes nowhere because a 30-year-old on Instagram isn't in the mood for it. And my TikTok stuff is geared more towards Gen Z, whereas my Instagram stuff is more towards millennials. And I think about this generational stuff a lot, and I sometimes think I have an advantage at my age. I don't, you don't need to tell me your age, but I'm 28. So I'm at the tail end of millennial, couple years removed from the start of Gen Z, and I sometimes can feel that both of those are in me. And I think that's why I do well on TikTok, because I understand how to communicate to Gen Z, whereas I see people who are full millennials, like 5 to 10 years older than me, completely don't understand Gen Z or how to talk to them at all.
Yeah.
And I sometimes think my age being kind of two generations on the cusp a little bit, I think has been helpful for me.
And that might be one of the challenges that I have at age 38. I'm kind of on the other spectrum of the millennial.
Yeah.
And I want to get down into the Gen Z psychographic just a little bit, right? Do you think that this Gen Z is more interested in this kind of like trendy, clickbaity type material? Do you think they're going to move more into the educational space? Because when I think of my demographic, I'm thinking of, really, I think that education is a big part. They're moving into the 40s, which again, 40s can be scary, not because, of the age so much, but you start thinking about the young gun coming in and taking your place, and maybe you
Yeah.
don't want to go back to school for a master's degree. So I'm just kind of wondering, what do you think are some key things that we can focus on to really target that Gen Z demographic or psychographic?
Um, okay, yeah. So Gen Z is very interesting. They are a generation that is less concerned with profit and fame and fortune and status and more about being kind to each other and not lying and being authentic and being genuine and being real.
Mm.
So Gen Z doesn't like all of the sales tactic stuff that might work on you or might work on whoever. Like they don't like any of that. The second you come out and try and sell anything to them, it's like immediate, like stop. You
Mm.
have to show your kindness, your generosity, and your authenticity before they're going to listen to you for any single second. Or you need to be humorous. You need to, take down a guard for them before they're going to listen to you on anything. So, if you look at my TikTok, some of it is like, here's how to make money online or whatever. But if I got on there and if I was like, Fiverr is the best and you ought to
Yeah.
be on it or whatever, like they would totally be like, screw you. Instead, I'll be like, guys, did you know that you can sell local photography services on Fiverr? And everyone's like, because they call Gen Z calls each other bestie. They'll be
Right.
like, bestie, tell me more. Because it's this whole idea of they're so scarred by corporate greed, cold calling, ads on TV, the world's crumbling, they all have anxiety, everyone's dying. Like, it's just like, it's a very like dismal whatever. So these people are just looking for you to just like be their bestie. That's how I can best explain it.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
and it makes a lot of sense. And I think for me, when I'm creating messaging for TikTok, that's something that I can keep in mind, you know, I do very little direct selling online. Like my posts are not really
Yeah.
about that, but I really get that kindness and authenticity goes farther.
Yeah. And I see there's actually some of the biggest creators on TikTok are in their 30s because these younger people are almost looking for mentors or parents if their parents weren't, there for them or their grandparents or whatever. So I've seen a lot of people be really successful by getting on there and almost being self-deprecating if you're 38 and be like, "Hey guys, the TikTok, big brother, dad's here or whatever." And but then they love watching someone who is 38 or who is 32 or who's 45 try and get them and their lingo. Like they love that. So
Hmm.
I've seen, some of the biggest creators I follow are all older than me on there and they are embracing Gen Z instead of being like, screw Gen Z, screw these young kids, they suck, all the stuff other people will say. They'll get on there and be like, hey, besties. And it's like a 50-year-old saying it. You can't help but laugh and be like, I love this person. They're like not afraid of the younger generations. They're not like angry at them.
Yeah. 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 Well, I really love that because sometimes I'll get those types of comments like, look at this guy, look what he's doing. And I'm like, I think not fighting it, but just kind of accepting it and playing along can mean a lot. The flip side of that, though, is that if you're too self-deprecating, then people can be like, I guess they don't respect the words that you say. Right. So it's kind of
Right.
threading that fine line.
Right. Exactly. It's somewhere in the middle, like establishing authority in some way, but also being able to like laugh at yourself and not be so corporate is the only thing I can say. Like Gen Z is a very anti-corporate
Yeah.
generation of people and everything associated with corporate, from culture to 9 to 5 to all of it.
How important do you think when we're establishing our authority and our credibility, how important, we'll stay on TikTok and then Gen Z, I think is really interesting. How important do you think it is that we show our receipts, that we show proof of how much money we're making and what we're doing? Is that become too salesy or has that become really important because we establish credibility?
I think that's a huge part of Gen Z is showing the receipts, because so many people have lied about so much for so long that I think showing the receipts is synonymous with Gen Z. Like it's what you have to do. It's like a trust thing. It's like a don't break that code, that trust that we have here
Yeah.
together. So I've shown my receipts many a time. It's gotten me a lot of hate when I do that. Because a lot of people would rather believe that I'm lying. It makes them feel more comfortable, or for whatever reason. I haven't really shown receipts so far this year since the CNBC thing in March. I feel like it's in a freaking episode on CNBC. If that's still not enough for some of you people, I'm going to stop feeding that, whatever that is. But I think some receipt showing is just a necessity with the Gen Z audience.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting fed so much like, here's my Lamborghini, here's my bookshelf type of stuff that, we
Yeah.
almost become numb to it. Like it's like we kind of assume that everyone that's trying to sell something online is in that space. And as I was doing my research, I mean, there's plenty of haters. You
Oh
got some
yeah,
haters out there, but you don't get to that level of scale and that level of reach and influence without having some haters.
for
I
sure.
do have a question, not so much with the obvious, like how do you deal with the haters, right? But I feel like specifically when it comes to young female entrepreneurs, I have a 5-year-old daughter who I'm trying to raise in this kind of self-empowered way. But when it comes to young female entrepreneurs, it feels like most women go with the sexy type of way of bringing people in, not with the OnlyFans, but again, here's me in my tight dress at my desk type of entrepreneurship. You've gone the opposite way. And I'm wondering, was that a conscious decision or you just wanted to be authentic in yourself? Tell me a little bit more about how you develop your personal brand.
I would say it's two. Yeah, I would say it's two things. It's me to not be like that and get on there. I'm just being myself, being totally authentic to me. And it's also somewhat related to my beliefs. Being a Christian person and someone who believes in God and everything, I just don't feel great if I'm like selling sex to do things. I'm just
Yeah.
like, why isn't my brain enough?
Yeah.
um, so I feel like in a funny way that makes me more of like a feminist than any other person because I'm just like, why isn't this just enough for everyone? Why does there have to be more? And when I see women do that, I feel for them because I feel like they think they have to do that to
Yeah.
be seen and heard today. Because I certainly see that we're at a disadvantage sometimes with being taken seriously. But then I'm also like, but you're also ruining it though, because you're exacerbating the problem still by,
Yeah.
I just want to like say to them, like, you are enough, your thoughts, your face, whatever, like you're enough. You don't have to do that. You don't, even though you think you do, you don't. But like no, I don't. I'm also like a very not judgmental person. I understand like sometimes the way people were raised or they think they have to or they have kids they have to feed or whatever. Like I have
Yeah.
no judgment towards whatever you got to do. I
Yeah.
get it.
And yeah, I'm with you, but I, I'm kind of torn by this too, but I think I have a very similar perspective to you, Alex. I think that the majority of women, they don't want to put themselves out there like that, right? But they feel like they have to in order to meet the standard of the format, or they see, this is what my favorite entrepreneur is doing, so I need to mirror that. But women, you don't need to do that. Adeline, when you watch this, when you're older, you don't need to do that. But
No.
I'm
No.
100% with you on authenticity.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is ingrained in your upbringing. I think if you had a parent, if your mom was like that, you think you have to be, or if you had a dad who told you you have to be, if you had like a sexist father or something like, I think there's so many things that it gets ingrained in people where they think like that's the only way that they can get attention. But
Yeah.
I hope, yeah, I hope there's a lot of teenagers who follow me on TikTok. I'm very conscious of that. I try and be a good example and a role model for them. I am still 28, so sometimes I will swear occasionally because I also don't believe in like being a total like vanilla cupcake either. The real world is the real world, but I am very conscious of the fact that there's a lot of young people on there, super young.
But I love that. At the end of the day, I think if I walk away with one thing, it's being authentic, and just remember, if you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. And I don't think we talk about standing out on Fiverr, on LinkedIn, on vertical video. The more authentic you are, I think people respond to that. You don't just want to be one of a million. You want to be you. You want to be leaning to your individuality.
Yeah, and I mean that's your best selling point too. Like there
Yeah.
is no competitor for you. So it's almost like you win when you're you in marketing too. Like you make money when you just go be you online. It actually like all plays out together.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive in a way, but it definitely works. Great earrings, by the way. I will point out, if you're listening to the podcast, you definitely got to check out the earrings on YouTube, everyone. Um, okay, cool. So we're talking here to Alexandra Fasulo at alexfasulo.com. Tons of great links. And before I let you go, Alex, we got to get into the overrated, underrated section. We got to go overrated,
Fun.
underrated. Ready? All right, cool. Overrated,
Fun.
underrated television.
Overrated.
Overrated, underrated minivans.
I hate minivans. But I love van life, so I don't know how to answer that.
I knew that would
Overrated to, overrated to minivans, underrated to van life.
dig it, dig it. Overrated, underrated YouTube Shorts.
Underrated.
100% on board with you there. Overrated, underrated, alligators.
I feel like underrated. They're pretty cool.
They are pretty awesome. And as a fellow Floridian, I'm all in on alligators. Overrated, underrated, TikTok for business.
Underrated still. For years, I think.
Yeah, I think we've got some time there. All right, awesome. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, Alex, what would you say?
Ooh. I would say, okay, 10 seconds. I would say, don't take school so seriously. It's important, but actually not that important. Be true to yourself, all the usual, and learn to accept people for their flaws because we're all flawed and it's all good. There. Was that 10 seconds?
We'll give it to you. And
Okay, sorry.
I definitely mirror that sentiment. Alexandra Fasulo, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being on the After Hours Entrepreneur.
Thanks for having me on, Mark.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. I've got several other episodes right here for you. Smash one of these videos to make sure that you don't miss out on the tips, tools, and tactics of industry experts. Let's take that side hustle full time. Smash one of these links.